Just left my house, going to Australia.
Welcome to Modern Grand Tour with me, Garland Lowe. Join the journey as we spend 3 months travelling to the other side of the world. Like the Grand Tours of old, we'll immerse ourselves in foreign cultures and feed our curiosity for the world with the diverse education that comes only with travel. We'll go on walking tours to understand the most popular and historic sites. We'll visit museums and pick out the most important objects and events. We'll talk to the locals and ask them what they think about their country. And there'll be some special moments off the beaten track. Travelling light with one small backpack, the itinerary for this trip begins with Belgium, followed by the Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Russia, where we'll couch surf across the country via the Trans-Siberian Railway, then catch my first flights to South Korea and Japan before finally arriving in Australia, just in time for my best friend's wedding. In this second episode of the series, we'll receive some practical advice about the local sex and drug culture, learn about the country's golden age, and visit one of the most famous houses in Europe. All within the beautiful floral and canal city of Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. Here I am. Outside Central Station. It's quite impressive looking building. First thoughts, I've been here before, but it looks all new because it was 10 years ago. And it's really nice. It's just a nice thing to be greeted with when you come out of the station. Canal, visitor centre. Right, let's go in. I always find these good places to figure out what sums up the city or the country by what's on their postcards and what souvenirs they have. So let's have a look.
Cue Dutch national anthem.
Canals are important, as are windmills and fields. Red light district, that's important. Maybe go and visit that later on. What is that? Miffy. Okay, obviously Miffy's Dutch. Clogs, they're Dutch. Facades, kind of interesting looking facades. That's Dutch. Bicycles, Dutch. Waffles, but not like the Belgian waffles, which are big and fluffy, but these are like hard pancake style waffles.
Leaving the city's beautiful train station, which itself is a National Heritage Site, we begin our short walk into the city centre along the dam rack.
Saw this, so I'm going to quickly go inside. Some sexy stuff, or some sexy muff. I don't really know what that is. Actually I do. I do know what that is.
Hello, Grizzler.
There's the devil, and the only thing worse than being greeted by the devil is devil with a boner.
Having got my first taste of Amsterdam culture, I quickly tried a second, altogether quite different taste. You could say it was a bit more mature.
Golden age of cheese. Tons of it.
Named after their cities of origin, Gouda and Edam are the 2 most popular cheeses in the Netherlands. Indeed, it is even suggested that the high consumption of cheese and milk is the reason for the Dutch being officially the world's tallest people.
Try on smoked cheese. I like smoked cheese. I think this is Dam Square. This is that Dam Square. I'm sure I'm not the third person to make that joke. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm really that funny. What is this? I'm just heading to the one that's playing the loudest. Maybe there's some monkeys behind that. It's like whacking away. Oh, is it like one at a time? Of course it's one at a time. Because if it was all at the same time, we wouldn't be able to hear any bloody thing. I mean, this is quite a weird... What is this? This is weird, so weird. Like 1800s carnival when that's all they can think of. They have no better ideas. Play some music on a caravan. People pay to listen and watch that. Oh look, they sell CDs. Weird, just weird, isn't it? You see what it looks like behind? That's where the magic happens. So he just spins it, and then the whole thing just kicks in.
The Dutch street organ, common in the late 1800s, was originally operated by the hand of the organ grinder, who played for the small change of passers-by. However, repetitive and often out of tune, sometimes passers-by would give money for organ grinders to move on. Fortunately, in this case, it was me who could simply move on. After taking in the interesting mix of facades, the retro-looking Dutch bikes by the canals, and the lovely flowers dotted around Amsterdam's bridges, it was time to join a walking tour.
Back in the days, if you wanted to build a house in Amsterdam, you didn't have to pay taxes on how high your house is going to be or on how long your house is going to be. you had to pay taxes on how wide your house was going to be. So a lot of people, they were kind of cheap. So they kind of made a sport out of it to make your house as narrow as possible. Where we're standing right now, we can see the narrowest house in Amsterdam. The orange house over there, that one is the narrowest house in Amsterdam.
Indeed, it's so narrow, this umbrella is actually hiding it. But never mind, I'm sure our tour guide will take us for a closer look in a bit. In the meantime, here's some pictures of what these narrow houses look like from the inside.
There were 2 people living there in their 40s, but they managed to fit a bathroom in there, and a kitchen, and a couch, and a TV, and all that kind of stuff. I know how to do it, but they really like living there. Let's go, guys.
Oh, okay, we're going the other way. Gutted.
You can recognize the Smartshops by the magic mushroom logo. They used to sell magic mushrooms. Nowadays they don't sell anymore. The Dutch government made magic mushrooms illegal. But nothing is ever really illegal in Amsterdam, because they kind of made an error when they made the law when they were banning the magic mushrooms. When a mushroom is growing above ground, you call it a mushroom. But when a mushroom is growing underground, you call it a truffle. So what they're doing nowadays, they're growing just normal magic mushrooms. And when they're grown, they're going to cover it with dirt. And then they're going to sell it as truffles. And you can still buy the truffles in the Smart Shop. If you're going to do drugs, please do it responsibly. If you're going to smoke something, like a joint, it goes into your lungs, into your blood, into your brain in about 30 seconds. So you almost know, for instance, how much you've taken, and most important, how much more you can handle. When you're going to eat drugs, for example, the truffles, or space cake, or a marijuana cookie, or a hash brownie, or whatsoever, if you're going to eat something, it has to go through your stomach, into your liver, then into your blood and into your brain. And that whole process takes about 1 hour. So if you're going to eat drugs, please, please, please wait for at least 1 hour before you're going to take more. Because a lot of people, they think it's not working, and after about 45 minutes, they're going to take an extra dose, and then they're going to take too much, so they're going to overdose for a bit. You won't die or something, but you'll have a bad time. You'll get stomach aches, you might throw up for a bit, your heart rate will go up, you will get a bit paranoid, you might see a doctor, he'll probably laugh at you because you were irresponsible. So please just wait for at least 1 hour before you're going to take more.
So is there a drug problem here, or are you saying no, it's tourists?
No, it's mainly for tourists, because if you compare the figures, the percentage of people using marijuana in Netherlands is actually lower than in, for example, England or France or Spain or the United States or Italy. Basically, it's one of the lowest percentages in Europe and in all the Western countries. So that kind of works. People ask me why the water in the canals is so dirty. But the water is actually pretty clean. About 10 years ago, the city of Amsterdam, they decided to block off all the canals and pump around water mechanically. And because it's pumped around, it's gets filtered every 48 hours. And if you want, you can swim in it. It's perfectly legal. If you're gonna go for a swim, please do not jump off the bridges. Here in Amsterdam, we have a saying, which is the canals are 3 meters deep. The first meter is mud, the second meter is water, and the third meter are bicycles. Every year, about 12,000 bicycles are taken out of the canals by the city of Amsterdam. It's like an underground tradition, because if your bicycle's broken, you can get it fixed. It's pretty expensive, or you can bring it to a recycling station. But the closest one is about 20 kilometers out the city center. So then they just throw it in the canal and get rid of it, because otherwise their whole garden is just filled with broken bicycles. The Dutch Scenic Train Company used to be the biggest company in the world. For Amsterdam and for the Netherlands, this company was very, very, very important.
To better understand this company, let's go into a bit of history. In the 14th century, a collection of independent provinces are taken over by first the French Burgundian Empire and then second the Spanish Habsburg Empire, and given the name the Netherlands. 200 years later, in 1581, 7 mainly Protestant provinces in the north, led by William of Orange, declare independence from the Spanish Habsburgs, thereby forming the Dutch Republic in what today is the Netherlands. whilst the 10 remaining Catholic provinces in the south would go on to become Belgium and Luxembourg. It is soon after the formation of the Dutch Republic that the Netherlands' most celebrated period occurs, spanning the 17th century. This period is known as the Dutch Golden Age. With Calvinism replacing Catholicism as the state religion, this new republic's religious tolerance, freedom of thought and egalitarianism would attract and foster Europe's intellectuals. Science saw the invention of the pendulum clock that produced accurate timekeeping, whilst the invention of the microscope and telescope allowed humans to see deeper and further than ever before. Philosophy, driven by Descartes, Spinoza and Locke, moved away from the Renaissance mindset based on faith into an age of enlightenment and reason. Whilst art, as painted by Rembrandt, Vermeer and Hals, focused on everyday secular subjects, it was in this young liberal society that saw entrepreneurial merchants enter the spice trade against the established English and Portuguese. Now, the Dutch East India Company, known in Dutch as de Verenigde Oost-Indische Compagnie, which is easy for them to say, was formed in 1602 and was crucially supported by the Dutch government, who gave the VOC monopoly rights, financial backing and state-like powers such as the right to wage war with its own private army, strike its own coins and establish its own colonies. In short, the Dutch East India Company was basically its own country. With this corporate structure, the VOC maximised opportunity on its trade network, which in itself was carefully designed as it relied on the exchange of cargo several times within Asia before returning to Amsterdam to sell tea, coffee, sugar, textiles and its most profitable product, spices. For 200 years, having greatly advanced globalisation, capitalism and seafaring, which includes impressively mapping Australia and New Zealand, whilst less impressively exploiting Asian and African slavery, by 1800, European war and Asian politics had led to the demise of the Dutch East India Company, with its colonial territories later becoming the country of Indonesia. Thought of as the world's first transnational company and the first company to be listed on an official stock exchange, the Dutch East India Company is generally considered the richest and most influential company in world history.
So a lot of big ships, they would come from Asia like every 2 weeks, and then they would bring a lot of spices to the markets of Amsterdam. And if you know a bit about economics, you know it's not very smart to sell everything at once, because the price would go down a bit because demand and supply. So they wanted to storage everything, so they built all these storage houses. But you had to pay taxes on how wide your house was going to be. So all these houses were very, very narrow. So if you wanted to store something on the top 2 floors, because if you did it on the ground floors, you had a chance it would get wet because the canals would flood all the time. You had to get up and down the stairs like 1,000 times. So they started to think about a solution. And the solution they found was attaching a beam to the house and then attaching a hook to the beam. Like the one over there, you can see on the top there's a beam like poking out the window, and then there's a hook attached to the beam. So what they would do, they would put a rope through the hook and then tie it around the stuff they wanted to storage, and then they could pull it in, and then they could storage it on the top floor. So it was a lot easier instead of going up and down the stairs all the time. But when your house is straight and you're going to pull something in, every time you give a big pull, it will smash against your house. So eventually your house will break down. But when your house is linked to the front just a little bit, and you give a big pull, it won't smash against your house. So that's the reason why these houses are actually leaning to the fronts, because they were originally built as storage houses. That's also the reason why we have the canals in Amsterdam, because the big boat would dock it at the port of Amsterdam, where the central station is right now, and then all these spices would be put on smaller ships, then transported through the canals, and then tied, and then pulled in the houses for storage. These hooks are still used today, mainly by students. On summer holidays, a lot of students start living in Amsterdam because they're going to start studying. You can still attach your rope through the hook, tie it around your couch, your refrigerator, or your washing machine, and then you can still pull it in and get it in by the window. The first thing Napoleon changed when he got here to Amsterdam. So the streets, they had names, but you couldn't check the names on the buildings because instead of a street sign, you had these gable stones. So it was very, very impractical because if you went from Amsterdam, it was very hard to meet up with somebody because you didn't know which street was which. So when he got here, he decided that everybody had to take out their gable stones and put in the street signs as we have today. The second thing he changed was introducing surnames. In 1800, 70% of the male population had one of these four names: Jan, Johan, Johannes, or Jantinus. So you can imagine it was very, very confusing. So Napoleon, he decided that everybody had to pick their own surname. But the people from Amsterdam, they didn't like Napoleon. And they decided to kind of make fun of the whole surname thing. So if you open a Dutch phone book nowadays, you can actually have quite a laugh because we have some very weird last names. For example, we have got naakt, which means being born naked. Borstjes, which means small breasts. And one of the craziest one I've ever seen is poepjens, which means small pieces of poop. Yeah, so that's kind of weird. But the reason is because people didn't like Napoleon. In the year 2000, the Dutch government made prostitution legal. The reason why is because they were sick and tired of human trafficking. A lot of girls were working in the red light district. They were brought from Eastern Europe by their pimps, and they would promise the girls they could be rich and famous and supermodels and movie stars and all that kind of stuff. When they finally got here, they would be forced to sit behind the windows, receive all these customers, and give all their money to their pimps. And because the Dutch government really didn't like it, they decided to make it 100% legal. The girls who are working here, they rent their rooms for about 8 to 10 hours a day, and they receive somewhere around 10 to 20 customers. Here in Amsterdam, we also have a fixed price on how much you have to pay to visit one of these girls. 50 euros. 50 euros will get you one oral pleasure and one position. So if you want to do more, you gotta pay more. But I've been told that if you go here on a Monday morning, it's not very busy, and you can handle a bit, you can actually do it for 35. So if you're really cheap or really poor and you still want to do it, you have to come back on Monday morning. So if you do the math, these girls, they earn somewhere around 600 to 900 euros a day because they pay some rent, they pay some taxes, and they pay some protection money. There are still some pimps involved in the red light district, but the main thing these guys are doing is protecting the girls. They all have a cord in their room and their beds, so when a guy gets in, he gets abused, they can pull the cord, and some big guys will get in and beat the guy up and throw him in the street or in the canal. I think the average visit will last here in the red light district in Amsterdam
1 minute.
1 minute.
Oh, are you
1
kidding?
minute. 1 minute. All right.
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
20 minutes.
So
15 to 20 minutes.
15 to 20 minutes. 10. 12. 15. It's 8 minutes and 21 seconds. And the 8 minutes, 21 seconds, they include taking off the pants, washing the funny parts. All the girls, you have to sink in the room. So before you're gonna get the oral pleasure, you have to wash yourself. Then receiving the oral pleasure, doing the one position, putting back the pants on, and paying the 50 euros. That all includes the 8 minutes, 21 seconds. So I guess you can say, these girls, they know where the buttons are, and then they push them really fast. We have a color code here. When it's a red light only, it's a girl looking for a guy. When it's a red light with a blue light next to it, it's a girl looking for a girl or a guy, she doesn't care. But when it's a blue light only, it looks like a girl. But you're gonna have an extra surprise when the panties are going down. So they're technically guys, but they look like girls. So we do have some guyish people working here. The last thing you need to know is that these girls do not like it if you take pictures of them. If they see you taking a picture of them, they will go crazy. What they will do, they will open their door, and then they're going to throw whatever liquid they have at hand at your face. I'm not gonna fill in the blanks, But if you have a dirty mind, you know what these liquids are?
Time to turn this off. No to blue light. That's what I have to remember. No to blue light. Okay, time to turn things down.
The oldest building in Amsterdam. And as you may have noticed, the prostitutes are around this church, which is of course pretty strange. But there's actually a pretty logical explanation for it. So these guys that were at sea for about 1 to 2 years. And on these boats there were no women because it brought bad luck. So when they finally got to Amsterdam, they were very lonely because there were no women, and were very loaded as well because they couldn't spend their money because they were at sea. So when they finally got here, they were going to do it anyways. They didn't really care about the religion. But at one point, the priest of this church, he found a solution. He said, what you're going to do, you're going to visit one of these girls, you're going to come to me, you're going to pay me some money, then you're going to confess all the dirty things you have done, then I will pray for you, and your sins will be forgiven. So at that point, all the girls started living around the church because they knew these guys were going to visit them, then go to the church. This right here is my favorite thing in Amsterdam. I'm gonna tell you why. At first, it's a golden tit. I mean, it's a golden tit, it's a golden breast. It was put in here by a street artist. We don't know who it was, so he or she put in this piece of art and other pieces all over Amsterdam.
Piecing together the clues, there is a theory as to who the artist could be. The 3 coloured sculptures are red, white and blue, the colour of the Dutch flag. Whilst this sculpture was placed on the day before the Queen's birthday, and this sculpture, incredibly located inside City Hall, looks like the Queen's husband. Because these mystery sculptures would require someone of influence for them to be placed in prestigious locations and then not be removed, the theory suggests the Netherlands' own Queen Beatrix, who is a renowned art fan and sculptress, is Amsterdam's mystery artist. Although, I'd be curious to know how she links with the golden tit. Where were we?
And the reason why I like it is that I always imagine tourists going to Amsterdam and then they're going to smoke some joints and then they're going to drink some beers and then they're going to walk from this side to that side and then they're kind of not really paying attention and then they're going to stumble over the golden tit. And I also imagine that they come back home and they're going to tell their friends and family the story on how they stumbled over a golden tit in Amsterdam, and nobody's going to believe them, but it actually happened. So that's the reason why I really like this thing here in Amsterdam.
With the tour over and having thoroughly enjoyed the knowledge and enthusiasm shared by our local guide, I then went for my own touristic wonder, including visiting this burger vending machine restaurant.
Look at this place. So if you want a burger, you go and put €2.20 in, and it just comes out. Look, it won't come out because I haven't put any money in. Oh look, there's someone behind it. Look at that. There's someone putting burgers in. That was a bit rubbish.
With most squares I know of named after political, military or landed aristocracy, it was refreshing to visit a square dedicated to a simple artist, or rather, an artist often considered the greatest of all time. In this multi-statue display, Rembrandt stands over a group of soldiers based on his own and most famous 1642 painting, The Night Watch. Depicting the Amsterdam militia led by the captain and his lieutenant, its standout features are the unequal throwing of light that draws focus on the main characters, and the perception of movement giving it a sense of narrative, both of which were unusual in group portraits at the time. The Night Watch statues, other than being a unique way to celebrate such a respected artist, also doubles up as a decent climbing frame. As we walk through the world's only floating flower market, this would be an apt time to discuss the national flower of the Netherlands, which is originally from Central Asia, the tulip. At the beginning of the Dutch Golden Age, a new botanist arrived to the Netherlands, bringing with him tulips acquired from the Ottoman Empire. Soon, tulips became a status symbol for the Dutch upper classes, but due to their shortage, prices skyrocketed. In a period known as Tulip Mania, people from all corners of society, from the rich to the poor, attempted to profit by selling their homes and possessions to purchase tulip bulbs in order to resell them at speculated higher prices. With tulip bulbs often changing hands several times a day, and where in a month its value could increase by 1000%, by 1637 a single tulip bulb of the prestigious Semper Augustus was worth 10,000 guilders, holding the same value as the grandest house in Amsterdam. But this tulip mania would eventually burst when people simply could not afford the prices anymore, driving prices down to a tenth of their former value. In what is the first ever recorded economic bubble, tulip mania, described as the madness of crowds, either left you very rich or left you with a handful of tulip bulbs as your only possession. So 10 years ago, just before visiting Amsterdam for the first time, I read the diary of a young girl. Disappointingly, I never got round to seeing the Anne Frank house, and so it was with this trip that I could make amends. The house, now a museum, did not allow for cameras, but that doesn't stop us from exploring her story. Anne Frank was born in Germany, but in 1933, aged 4, the Frank family moved to Amsterdam to escape Jewish persecution under the new Nazi regime. Almost 10 years later, with the Nazis having taken over the Netherlands, in 1942, aged 13, Anne Frank and family go into hiding on the top floors of an office building. In all, 8 people share this secret annex. There are also 4 helpers, who are the office staff. They have volunteered to help the hideaways, providing food and news from the outside. Over the next 2 years, Anne Frank documents the loving and fractious relationships within the pressurised conditions of the house, whilst also providing her philosophical thoughts on life and the future. If we study the writing, there are 5 things I find extraordinary. Number 1. Even for an adult it would be impressive, but for a child to be able to articulate such positive inspirational wisdom is even more so. But then maybe only a child could offer such innocence and hope in the face of such terrible circumstance. How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. Number 2. The almost immediate retelling of real life events, added with the lesser known story of Jews in hiding, combines to create a dramatic and unique story. Yesterday I had a horrible fright. At 8 o'clock the doorbell suddenly rang. All I could think of was that someone was coming to get us. You know who I mean. Number 3. With the house essentially a prison, it is her diary that offers freedom. We then as readers are privileged to share these fleeting moments of joy. When I write, I can shake off all my cares. My sorrow disappears. My spirits are revived. Number 4. Her honesty in writing about herself, knowingly flitting in behaviour from the petulant to the innocent, is an extremely candid presentation of the strengths and foibles of human character. They mustn't know my despair. I can't let them see the wounds which they have caused. I couldn't bear their sympathy and their kind-hearted jokes. It would only make me want to scream all the more. Number 5. Throughout the diary, Anne Frank writes about her ambitions and dreams for when she leaves the house. As a reader, knowing what immediately lies ahead for her loads every page with unintentional poignancy. I know what I want. If God lets me live, I'll make my voice heard. I'll go out into the world and work for mankind. I remember 10 years ago being shocked when I turned the page to see the diary end suddenly. For Anne Frank, her final moments in the house came without warning. The 8 hiders had been betrayed from an anonymous tip-off and sent to concentration camps where they all died, except Otto Frank. 2 years after the war, Otto Frank publishes his daughter's diary, turning her into the best-known victim of the Second World War, inspiring films, plays, TV programmes and animations. Now, in conclusion, I have 3 thoughts about Anne Frank. First, it's important to remind ourselves that this diary was just one of many stories that weren't written down. This is not to take anything away from Anne Frank, but rather to make us think about just how mind-blowingly massive and detestable the Holocaust was. Second, I wish to highlight the helpers, as seen here with Otto Frank, who for 2 years risked their lives to save their friends. Never have they uttered a single word about the burden we must be. Never have they complained that we were too much trouble. They come upstairs every day. They put on their most cheerful expressions, bring flowers and gifts for birthdays and holidays, and are always ready to do what they can. Third and lastly, Anne Frank's story is really important, because when we're given numbers like the deaths of 6 million Jews, it doesn't really hit home. Because whether it's 6 million or 60 million, I don't feel for numbers. But with a single face and name, I understand that that is a person. A person with all the complexities and emotions that I possess. I can't relate to that number, 6 million, but I can relate to Anne Frank. And so having read her diary and now visited the secret annex, I've come to understand that when Anne Frank writes of being scared, hopeful, confused, frustrated, lonely and angry, these are the feelings shared by millions of other Holocaust victims who, to some extent, Anne Frank and the Anne Frank house carry the honour and burden of representing.
Just come out there and yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff. To be honest, I was sobbing a little bit. Yeah, I mean it's just one person's story, and there were many stories, but it was the one that was captured. Grocery shop in Garland again. I don't even know what. Well, it's next to the Philadelphia, so basically it's cream cheese, isn't it? In the Netherlands, I'm a cream cheese. Cyclists are maniacs in oh fuck! Probably should better concentrate on my foot. Is that a wolf? All right, finally, yeah. Very good. Love a bit of garden. Who doesn't love a bit of garden? Look at this bird, he's coming really. Wait, stop. Go away. Look how close they're coming. No. Go. Shh. Go away. It's still there. Still wanting my bread. Knows it's being filmed. So it's turning away now. As soon as I turn off the camera, it's going to start staring me out again. I think when I push my hand out, they think I'm chucking them stuff. I don't know what to do. I need a stick. These Dutch birds are really scary. Wow, look how close it's coming. What size of his feet? I need to gouge my eyes out with those. I'm going to go and kick it in a second. Look at this guy. A pigeon wants to get involved. I'm not messing with those two though. If they want some bread, they're getting it. Van Gogh Museum. Don't go in. Got better things to do. Like eat garland cheese spread. Who's the best fan? Van Gogh? Van Basten? Van Morrison? Who's the best fan? So I can't actually get any further back, because if I do, I'm going to get into the water. So that's why it's I love Amsterdam. I am Amsterdam. Oh no, I've just realised what it means. It's I Amsterdam. Oh, that's the first time I've got that. The narrowest house in Amsterdam.
And then it was time to leave this extraordinarily generous, well-balanced city that offered so much with its international history, renowned and quirky arts, care for nature, harmonious street design with its facades and canals, and even bikes when they're not chopping you down, and its open attitudes to subjects other countries don't like to talk about. Join me in the next episode of this modern Grand Tour, where we'll learn how authoritarian rule would lead to the world's biggest war, largest genocide, and a wall established overnight that literally divided the people of a city, Berlin. So until next time, Godspeed.